Hi and welcome to this video. What we're going to be doing in this video is looking at how we can create our own SVG. I'm not going to be going super into detail. What I want to do though is show you two important things. One of them is just to make your life easier when making SVGs because too many people complicate it. And the second thing to do is when exporting it, how we can clean things up and how to organize our file to make it easy to manipulate and use. And what we're going to be doing is creating this hamburger. Now this is really simple. But I want to make one SVG, but I want to make it in a way that makes it easy for me to use. So if I come on here, I can add seeds, I can add my lettuce, my ketchup, and my cheese just by hitting these little buttons. Now this tutorial is not looking at how these buttons are working or how I coded this up. What it's really looking at is just how to create our SVG to make it easy to access all these different things. So to make your SVG in a way that works well and that you can manipulate. So this even means if you're taking SVGs that already exist, sometimes when you get it, it looks like a big mess. And what you can do to that big mess to help organize it and clean it up and work in a way, so to open it up in a vector software, make some changes in there, export a new SVG that is going to work better for you. So that's the focus of this video. Alright, so in today's video, we're going to be looking at how we can create our own SVGs using Adobe Illustrator. Now, a while back, I ran a poll asking if you guys would be interested in learning how to make SVGs, and you guys said yes. So this is what we're doing, but there were quite a few comments saying not to do it in Illustrator. And I totally get it. Illustrator is expensive. If you're not getting the whole Adobe suite, it's just really not worth it. So there are free alternatives, such as Inkscape. The only issue is I don't know how to use it. I've played around with it. I was able to figure it out. The problem is I'm really fumbling around trying to find things and I'm lost in the menus a little bit in trying to do it, and it really doesn't make for a good tutorial. All of these options that I'm looking for are there. They exist in Inkscape because I was able to find them, but I haven't had the time to learn the software properly, and I felt like it'd be a disservice. You can probably find some much better tutorials on something like Inkscape if that's what you want to use. That being said, the main thing I want to show with this video, because there's lots of really good videos on how to use vector software and how to draw really well, but you probably aren't planning on being an illustrator. So what I want this video to really be about is showing you how to use the software in the simplest way possible and how to think about the vector graphics. Maybe you buy a vector and it's just not set up properly. There's things that you need to change in it. So part of this video is creating the vector and part of it is organizing the vector and exporting it so we can actually use it properly when it gets to that point where you want to be able to control things properly with it. So the main thing I want to show is a lot of tutorials in vector software is going to show you how to use the pen tool. And the pen tool is an amazing tool. And if you really want to get into Illustrator, learn the pen tool. It's awkward. You start drawing things. You don't really know why the lines are going where they're going. And it's kind of weird. And it makes these funny shapes. And it doesn't look at all like what you want it to look like. But it is an essential tool. It's also a very handy tool in Photoshop as well for making some crisp selections. But that said, it's not the only tool, and for simple illustrations and things that are a bit more cartoony, the pen tool is nice for making adjustments, but it's not really a necessary tool for actually creating the vectors. So in most of the software, there's tools that are hidden underneath. So if you're not used to it, there are you can see here I have a rounded rectangle tool, which is kind of useless these days. But I have my ellipse tool, polygon tool, rectangle tool. They're all here. If you are using another one, you have all of these options available. These are just the simple shapes. And this is mostly what we're going to be using. So I'm going to be making a hamburger. So we're going to start with the bun. So I'm going to choose the ellipse tool because it's nice for making a shape sort of like this. This is going to be my bun. Now, one thing, I have my color options here. There's lots of ways of opening it. I can come here and like double click and get into my colors this way too. I like having the colors always just available, and the default is usually RGB because we're working in RGB. I like switching this over to CMYK. My document is still an RGB document. For me, it's a lot easier to create colors mixing it with the CMYK. Than it is with RGB. So I know I want a bun, so there's going to be a bunch of yellow in there and then a bit of orange, and it's going to be way too dark, so let's just tone her down. There we go. That's not a bad bun color. Now the shape, this is just the top of my bun. And there's obviously an issue with the shape of it. Now, this is one of the most important concepts when it comes to using vector software and making some nice illustrations and not having to draw everything yourself. It's using the pathfinder. And I don't think they call it a pathfinder, but this is available in everything pretty much. So I'm just going to I want to slice this there. So I'm drawing this shape. Let's just make it black so we can see. So now that actually looks like the top of a bun, but it's sitting on this black square. So I'm going to select both of those. And if you have the newest version of Illustrator, this will automatically come up. If not, you can go to Window and find your Pathfinder. And if you're using Inkscape, all of these options, it's not here in Illustrator, but there's a thing called Path, and you go on Path, and in Path, right near the top, you'll see little icons that look like this. And I want this one right here, which is minus the front. So it means take this object in the front and remove it from my ellipse that I have here. So minus. And now I have the top of my hamburger bun. Great. Whatever software you're using, because we're using and creating SVGs, we're going to want to use our layers. So I'm going to call this layer my bun. I'm going to come in with the bottom bun in a second. I guess we could do that one right now too. For my bottom bun, I'm just going to use the square tool. I'm going to start here and just draw out a bottom piece. It should be a bit thinner because it's the bottom. And I don't know how much I need to move it down by. Now, I don't want it to look like this. I'm really going to be going for some round shapes and like Illustrator-y style things. It's really in now to have lots of round corners. So in Inkscape, if you want to do it, you have some options at the top over there when you have a shape selected that lets you round the corners. In Illustrator now, we can just use these corner things. So if I do that, it's going to round all my corners. And I can make a bottom bun that way for sure. What I'm going to do instead is, right now if I do it, it's going to round all my corners. But if I click on it again, you see how it becomes white? And now it's only going to do that one corner. So we'll go for like a 10-ish, 10.45 is fine. I just want to make sure that I end up with both of them at the same thing. And there's ways of writing that in, but there we go. So I just have the rounded off bottom of my bun. So that is here. Now in my layer, if I click this, I actually see the two parts of it. So I can even come on this and call this one bun top. And whoops, I did the wrong one. That would be bun bottom. And this one here, if I click there, I can see it's selected. And that one is my bun top. Great. Okay, so there's my bun. Now I want to make the hamburger itself. So I'm going to come in here and it's going to be a nice big patty and it's going to take up this whole thing. I'm going to make it a bit bigger than there. So let's just come and make it a darker color. I'm going to make this orange first actually, because a nice dark brown is just an orange that has a lot of black in it. We're going to go pretty dark and there we go. So I'm just going to do that, and then I'm going to round all the corners equally. And we'll just stretch it out. I'll take everything, go back to my properties here, and just align, making sure everything is centered together. Now this is my hamburger patty, so we'll come back onto layers. I'm going to make a new layer called patty. And I'm going to move this onto my patty layer just by clicking this blue thing and dragging and dropping it there. And I'm going to drag this and put it under my bun. Everything's going to go under my bun because I want my bun to be on top. I think I might put some seeds on there at 1.2. Anyway, we'll see what we're going to do with it. Okay, great. It's easier if you make your new layer first. So we'll call this one lettuce. So my lettuce, I'm going to grab this and I'm just going to come in. I'm going to make a shape a little bit like this. Let's just make it green so we can actually see what we're working with. I had green there. Whoops. There we go. Some bright green color. Whoops. I'm going to zoom in a bit on this. Command plus. I just want to zoom in a bit on that. I'm going to round the corners really far on that to make my lettuce. And we're just going to sort of do something like this. So To copy this, actually what I'm doing is I'm pushing Option or Alt on my keyboard if you're on a Mac or PC, and I'm just clicking and dragging so my lettuce comes along like that. I'm just copying all those pieces. Now the problem is I have lots of different little pieces here of my lettuce. So what I want to do is just select all of my lettuce all at once and go back to my properties here or my Pathfinder and merge them all so they're just one nice big shape. This is going to make it a lot easier when I have my SVG because I only need to change one thing. I'm not going to be dealing with a whole bunch of different little pieces. So there's my lettuce that's sitting on there. I'm also going to want to add some cheese. So let's go back to my layers, make a new layer, bring that underneath. We'll call this one cheese. And let's add some cheese. So the cheese, I'm actually going to turn off my lettuce for now, so we're not going to see it. So I can just push this eye icon, and I'm going to come in and do some cheese. Now this is going to take maybe a bit of fine tuning to do how I want to do it. I'm going to stretch this out. Let's get a good cheese color. That looks pretty good. So what I want is I want my cheese to be the same shape as my patty at the top, and then we're going to play around with how it looks on the bottom a little bit. So actually I'm going to round the corners on this first. Yeah, we're just going to go like that, and it's going to line up just like that. The problem is this corner is a different shape than that corner. You can see if I select it and we zoom in on that, you can see that, and this is just a control spacebar to get my zoom up. You can see that the corners aren't the same. So once again, we can use my Pathfinder. So I'm going to click on this. I'm actually going to copy that. So it'd be a Command C. So just Command C, Command V. So I have my burger again. I'm actually going to do a Command F instead, or we can even look here, Edit, Paste in Front. Command or Control. I keep saying Command because it's the same thing. And I'll make that one black just so we know it's not the same as my other one. Now the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to be editing this, and if I do it with my original patty, it's going to ruin my original patty. So I can select this piece of cheese and select that. I want to go to my Pathfinder again, and I only want to leave the parts where they're intersecting each other. So I'm going to click on that. And now my cheese, you can see, it's following the curve that I had here, which is perfect. Now it has a weird sort of angle on it, but that's okay because I'm going to cover it up because my cheese needs to be dripping, right? So actually I'm going to have to do another intersect on this, but I want to come down. I'm going to round all of that off. I'm going to do, so I'm going to take this option and click and drag it, and I just want sort of a whole bunch of little pieces of some cheese. Now for the one down the side, I'm going to do the same thing as before. Copy, Command F to paste in front. And with my new pasted in front thing, plus this, I'll do an intersect. And the same thing here. Take those two. Whoops. Take this, copy, Command F, paste in front. Select this, select my new pasted in front thing, intersect. And now my cheese is flowing along like that. The next thing I'm going to do is I want to select all of the things on my cheese layer. So I could try and come and click on them all, but if I go to my layers here, they were all on the cheese already. You can see if I turn that on and off, they're all there. I can just click this. It's going to select everything that's on my cheese layer. Go back to properties and merge them all together with my Pathfinder. Next, if I really want to, I could also come onto these and round these corners off a little bit just to make it look a little bit nicer. So I'm going to speed things up while I do that for the recording. All right, awesome. My cheese is done. So now I have my cheese. I should be able to come and turn my lettuce on. Now my lettuce is a little bit too big, I think. So I want to shrink my lettuce down. I'm just going to smush it a bit this way. Do I? It's a little bit too big. I could move it just up. That's fine. I don't mind if it's sticking out the top. I wanted to keep the shape there. I just want to make sure that my cheese, either like, either that. I don't want to move my cheese now. I just don't like that those are lining up exactly with each other. So I think I'll just do that for my lettuce. Now I can turn off my cheese and I just have lettuce on it. I can have my cheese or just my cheese or just my cheese. And now let's add some ketchup. So let's turn those off so I can just work. Actually, we're going to work with them on so we can see how they sort of interact with each other. The ketchup's going to be really nice and simple. It's going to go between the two of those. So new layer, ketchup. And once again, I'm just going to take this, draw a nice little shape, round off the corners on it, and get a nice bright red. Perfect. Yeah, I think we'll just stick with that. Let's go and add my sesame seeds. We're going to add those on their own layer. We'll call it seeds. And I'll come and take my ellipse tool. Just draw a little shape like that. These will be close to white, because usually it's those little white seeds you see on them. And let's just make a whole bunch of these all across my burger. Sweet. Now the bottom I think is a bit too thick, so I'm just going to smoosh her down. There we go. I am pretty happy with that burger, actually, on my seeds. My seeds, they're all together, they're on their own layer, so they should be fine. Sweet. So my burger is done. Now there's a few things that I want to do still with my burger to get it ready to export to make my SVG. I should have been doing this actually from the start, and I just completely forgot. Well, I did start with my bun. I had my bun top and my bun bottom. I want all of these to have a name on them. So I made a bit of a mistake when I did that. So I'm going to speed this up and do it, or I'm going to cut to when it's done. But I just want to make sure that everything in here has its own class or name on it, because all of those names, if we don't give it one, means it'd export the SVG part without any ID on it, which we definitely want. We want to grab everything in here to have its own ID. The other thing is, you don't actually need to have everything in here to have its own layer. As long as all of these sublayer things, you could have it all in one layer with the sublayers having names on them. That would be fine. I just find it easier to work this way because it's going to make groups for us. And when I want to turn my ingredients on and off after, it just makes my life a lot easier being able to select the whole group. And I don't know, it's the way I like to work. But if you have everything in one layer and just name all the sublayers, that's fine too. I just don't like working with sublayers. I'm used to working with layers like this in Illustrator. So I'm going to go through and rename these. So this is going to be my patty burger. And my names, in some instances, cheese, we'll call this like cheese drips. I'm going to do double underscores just sort of since I'm used to BEM. Ketchup, whoops, ketchup is fine. Now here, if you see this where I sort of screwed up, if I did it the first time, if I did ketchup drip, let's say, and I take that one ketchup drip, which we can't even see, so it's kind of useless. But anyway, if we let's move that so I can actually see it. If I take that one ketchup drip and I were to have copied it from the beginning, the new one has the exact same name. So I could have named it at the beginning, then copied it all, and then the name would be on all of them. Now what I'm going to do is just copy this and have to paste it on each one of these. Now, if you're in Inkscape, you just go File, Save As, and there's an Inkscape SVG, and there's the regular SVG. I would save it as a regular SVG if I was going to be using it online. I don't know what the extra stuff that is in the Inkscape one. I think it has extra features just for Inkscape because it's sort of their file. But I don't know for sure. If you're going to do it from Illustrator, there's a whole bunch of different ways to export things these days. There's my nice little asset export where I don't want my seeds. I can literally just take my whole hamburger. If I drag it in just like that, it's going to select everything separately, but it says if I alt drag, it will take the whole thing as one item. So I can do that, get an SVG, and just hit export, and it's going to give me an SVG. Another thing you can do is go up to File and Export, and choose Export As. The advantage is when you choose SVG, so let's just call this hamburger. When I hit Export here, it's going to ask me some options. And this is handy. Do you want your styling as internal CSS? So it's going to have a style tag at the top and then it. Do I want it as inline styles or presentation attributes? I would go with inline style if you're going to be playing around with it a little bit. We're not using any fonts right now, so you don't have to worry too much about that. Images we don't have to worry about. What is important here is object IDs. You can have it take the layer names that you did and give it an ID for each one of those objects, which is really handy, and I would suggest leaving that on. By default, minify will be on, so just be careful with this, because if minify is on, it will minify your code, and if you're going to production, that can be a good thing, but if you're not going to production, you probably don't want that to be on, because you want to be able to see it. So with all that done, you can actually go show code and it will pop up in your text editor and you can copy and paste it if you want. Or you can just hit OK and actually save your SVG and then open it up and use it in your code editor like we've already been looking at doing. All right, awesome. So here is the SVG opened up in VS Code so we can see what we're looking at. So we can see here that right now everything has an ID on it. So I have my ID Patty, and then inside there my rectangle has Patty Burger. I guess I could have called that Patty 2 or something, but anyway. Then I have my cheese with my cheese drips, all my ketchup drips. Now, because they're IDs, they are numbered, which I don't really want. It automatically numbered them for me, but that's okay. It's a little bit of cleanup at this point. So what I'm going to do is I also don't want them to be IDs. I'd much prefer if these were all, and maybe this could be would have made more sense. This could have been condiments, and then I could have ketchup, ketchup, I misspelled it too. Nice. Ketchup, and then I could have had mustard in here as well, and I could have had relish, and I could have done multiple different condiments all within the same group. That could have easily worked as well. So what I'm going to do here is I don't want any IDs. I want everything to be a class. So what I'm going to do is a command F to get my find thing. And I don't want to be finding that. I must have had it selected. I want to find anything that's ID equals. Make sure you don't do ID because lots of words like with have ID in it. So ID is equal to, and I'm going to click this little arrow because I want to replace it with class is equal to. If I do that and I click this, it will change the first one after my selection. So you can see that one just got changed. Whereas if I click this one, it will just change everything all at once. And there we go. It can't find any more IDs because I've changed them all. I'm also going to do a quick find any ketchup drip and change it to ketchup. Change all. There we go, to fix the spelling there. And now I do manually have to come in here and just get rid of all of these numbers. So I'm going to speed things up while I do that so you don't have to watch me fixing all this. Awesome. So that has all been fixed up. I can now just hit save on that, and I can use this SVG however I want to use it. Now, if I want to be using this in an inline SVG, which I am going to want to do, I could take this whole thing and copy and paste it. Now, one thing that might be useful if you're happy with it is to minify your code. Now, minifying it makes it lighter weight, which is nice, and it puts it all on one line, so that can be really handy. One way you can do it if you didn't minify it coming out of Illustrator. And so once I'm happy and I know it's working and I've used it, and I like being able to see everything just to make sure my classes and all of that are okay, and I've fixed my class names and everything, I'm going to save that file. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to open up this, which is SVGOMG. If you don't know about it, it was made by Jake Archibald. The link for it is down below. And basically SVGO If I click there, it's an optimization tool for SVGs. So SVGO optimization with Node. Now, maybe you don't like Node, maybe you're not comfortable with Node, and for something like this, I actually really like having the graphical interface. So it's SVG optimization missing GUI MG. So it's really nice and easy to use. Open SVG. So I'll go get my hamburger and I'll hit open. And there is my hamburger right there. And I can come and look and click on markup, and I can see the markup that's right here. And you can see right away it has actually been minified. So if I look here, I can see all the original stuff and all the different things that it's doing. So in this case, I don't have a doc type and the XML instructions, but depending where you're coming from, it could easily have that. So you can have that stripped out. If there were comments in it, you can strip the comments. If there's metadata, you can strip that. If I do this, remove XMLNs, you can see that that's right here. So if I click on that, it goes away. Remove editor data. So you can see that this will remove extra attribute white space. I can, if your styles weren't inline, you can use this to inline them. I can also minify styles if I wanted to. My style attributes, style 2 attributes. What this means is right now it's saying style is equal to fill. If I do style to an attribute, instead it's just switching it over to having a fill. So it's not a style equals to, cuts down on the weight a little bit. Clean IDs I would not do. Actually, in this case, there are no IDs, so it's not actually going to do anything because I changed all the classes. But if you're doing this step before you bring it into your other software, if you do that, it will just delete any ID that you have. And maybe you want to do that, but if you're controlling the stuff, you probably don't want to. But if you're only using it as an external resource, then that's fine to do. And etc. There's a lot of stuff in here. You might want to try something, and if it breaks it, then try again, because sometimes it will cause issues or break things. So just be careful that you don't overdo it trying to get down to too small of a file size. Or actually, you know what? Because it's not really a plan of mine go in this one, but let's do it anyway, just so you can actually see the style to attributes, why it can be useful. So I'm going to copy this as text, and let's go over to here where I have a file that's ready for us to go. And you can see I've already done a little bit of styling on this. We actually have to bring up right there. We're ready to rock and roll. So I've done a little bit of styling. All this is going to do is place my hamburger right dead in the middle. And I'm going to take my optimized SVG here and paste that in and hit save. And I should see my hamburger show up. Awesome. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually just give this a class of hamburger and hit save on there because I want to be able to control my hamburger too. So dot hamburger, let's say it has a width of 80 viewport width. Yeah, that should be good. There we go, just so it's not touching the sides. Now what I was talking about before is if I was using this, my original code, say my seeds are kind of hard to see now, and say you wanted to be able to see your seeds. This is an inline style on my seeds. It's hard to make the change. Whereas now all I'd have to do is write in seed, color, background, fill. Fill is white, save, and look at that. Now you can see my seeds. So it just, white, and then maybe we could opacity 0.8 or something like that, just to lower it a little bit, 0.7. It gives me a little bit more control once I've gotten out to be able to make it look exactly how I want it to, which can be useful. So now I'm going to do a little bit of fun stuff to be able to toggle different ingredients on and off. I'm going to be using some JavaScript to do it. It's not part of the actual tutorial because we're focusing on the SVGs now. I just want to show you why creating it like this and naming your layers and everything, the type of control that it can give you. All right, so everything is done in my code here. So the main things I've done is I've come and just added an event listener onto each one of those buttons, which is just toggling a remove class. And I added this remove class here, which is just display none. So if I click on something, it will turn it off. And if I do that, it will toggle the class back off so my ingredients reappear and I can see them again. Of course, then also we can come in and make changes to here. So I know it says ketchup, so I would never make this change. But if ever you really wanted your ketchup, your ketchup to instead be mustard, fill yellow. Oops, I didn't call that. I called that ketchup drip. There we go. And my ketchup drips have done that. Or, you know, maybe in a more realistic thing, you might want to change your cheese. So I think it was cheese drips that I did. So on here, we could do my cheese drips are fill. Let's just see if we can find a different cheese color in here that we might have. You know, not sure if you'd have a salmon colored cheese, but you never know. You can come in and change the color of things and do all of that. So we both maintained the ability to edit the appearance of things, which is really nice, and to be able to manipulate things with our JavaScript or whatever it is. You can select stuff, and that's the important thing, is to be able to come into our SVG and make changes to it. And in the next video, we're going to be looking at adding animations. And if we want to add animations, we need to easily be able to select the different pieces that we want to animate. So if you just have a big mess of an SVG, that's going to be really hard to do. Whereas if you have a nice organized SVG that you're working with, it will make your life a lot easier to be able to come in and make changes too. So that's in next week's video. For this video, that's it. We've reached the end. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please hit thumbs up. If you have any questions about what I've done or any comments or other things you'd like to see, please leave a comment down below. A big thank you to my patrons. Once again, you guys are awesome. If you don't already know, I have a Patreon page. People support me through my Patreon and they help make these videos possible. And they're the ones who recommended the SVG series and to take a look at that. So thank you guys very, very much. And of course, just thank you to everybody for watching this video. And don't forget, until next time, to make your corner of the internet just a little bit more awesome.